Welcome to the Tulsa Regional Chamber State of Workforce and Talent presentation. I'm the keynote speaker, Mike Mathews. What a delight to be presenting about the many things that are happening around the world. You know, I'm privileged to be involved with so many different things around the world, but specifically in Tulsa, Oklahoma at Oral Roberts University. So it's a delight to be presenting on such a timely topic. You know, there's not a one of us as a person or as a company or as a leader that wants to be at the back of the pack. Leaders are leaders. They're out at the front of the pack. And so how do you stay in front of the pack considering so many technologies available in the current workforce environment that we all find ourselves in? Well, I'm going to take a few moments and try and describe that for the benefit of everyone. You know, as we take a look at the reality of our workforce, we have to understand that there is definitely some key leadership skills that are always pertinent. And the first one I list there is be bold and a consistent leader. That's pretty constant, right? But how do you balance the workforce change that's happening and innovation at the same time, which leads to bullet number 2, which is you have to factor in the dilemmas of the day we live in and work in and lead in according to the workforce and their demands, or I should say needs, right? So the third thing really is leverage the very tools that people are using away from the workplace. In other words, how would we leverage the things they use at home, at work, because they're applicable? Most companies need the very things they're programming at home. How to program the automatic thermostat, or how to make your home autonomous, or your TV theater system automated. We need to do that at work as well. So those are 3 things to keep in mind. But really, I need to focus on not talent, because talent is no longer the top need anywhere. You know, we can hire some talented people and they're going to help, no doubt. But the buzzword of the day or cliche is we don't have enough talent. We need a talent management system. All true to some degree, but I've been around a long time and I've never seen talent by itself solve the day. I see teamwork, I see relationships, I see ingenuity, but talent by itself is short-lived. And so that brings me to the topic really, what are the 3 urgent realities of our day when you think about the workforce? Number 1 is retention. Number 2, engagement. Number 3, mental health. These 3 at play create a lot of havoc in the workforce, but if you're not addressing them, they go unnoticed. So if you take a look at retention alone, nearly 70% of Gen Z and millennial Americans started to leave their job before they started the day. In other words, they've got plan B in place. They may not be happy, but you don't know that. They think the grass is greener, we may say, but the truth is that's the generation who is 26% of the workforce now. Actually, if you add millennials and Gen Z, far bigger than that. So we got to pay attention to retention. Number 2 is engagement. 85% employees are silently quitting their jobs. They show up, they're smiling, they get the paycheck, they put some work forth, but they're really not fully engaged. And every one of us as a leader, as a workplace environment, needs the best out of everyone in order to be competitive in today's marketplace. So we need to pay attention to engagement, but then mental health. We need to pay attention to anxiety and depression. 1/3 of Americans have symptoms of these things: depression, mental illness, or anxiety. We need to be aware of the retention, engagement, mental health right in the workplace. If we're not, we can have all the talent in the world. I've managed a lot of people in my day, and I gotta be honest, some of the most talented people who suffer from mental health are very difficult, or they're not engaged, or they're looking for another job all the time. We need to be careful that we're paying attention to the right things. These are the 3 urgent realities. And there's a company called My Why who studies this intensely to make sure that everyone knows their place and their interests and how do you fully retain a workforce, engage them, and provide for their mental health situations. So there's 2 books that I'd like to share with you that are pertinent for today. Number 1 is by the Gallup organization called Culture Shock, a documentary / very factual book about the shock wave that's went around the workforce around the world, and that you have to meet the need of employees of today. After the pandemic, we all witnessed a lot of different shifts in society, quitting, maybe retiring early, whatever the case may be. Culture Shock does a wonderful job, so make sure you get this book. And then the president of Oral Roberts University, Dr. William Wilson, wrote a wonderful book on this workforce that's making up 26% of all the people working for you, and that's called Generation Z. He has we would say mastered, but he has studied intensely, but he is involved hands-on with over 5,000 up to 6,000 students on the campus of Oral Roberts University. These 2 books are a must read if you really want to understand those 3 things I talked about: retention, engagement, and the mental well-being of people. Understand the society, who is a major part of your workforce. So culture shock, the highlights I want to bring out, those 2 books really, primarily the number 1, is it's clear that we have an unstoppable force at play. You could be a great leader 5 years ago, but it may not be true today, all because of this unstoppable force that's at play. Culture shock documents that, helps you understand it. But at the same time, how do we leverage the very tools, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, immersive learning, the very tools that could help people in the workplace and identify their strengths, their weaknesses at the same time? Well, you want to pay attention to that in today's workforce. I'm telling you, being a leader today is not for the unenergetic. It is not for the weak-minded. It is not for those who decide, I don't care what people think. That is not the workforce that we find ourselves in today. So when we investigate the potential of artificial intelligence as an example, how could we change the learning environment? People talk often about the teaching environment, but I prefer to think about the learning environment. How could I study how my employees or the future employees need to learn? Because I can change the teaching if I want, but I need to understand how they're learning. That's critical. You know, gone are the days of hiring happy plastic people, I would call it, is that people are hired, they listen to you, they follow you, no questions asked. We all prefer that in a way. But the truth is, that's not the real world we live in today. Life has changed, it's shifted, and we need to accommodate that and not treat people like they're just going to be happy plastic people, because all the data says the complete opposite. So again, those 2 books, vital. Make sure you get those. But the current and future workforce screams, and I feel it. I mean, they don't loudly, maybe in a voice, scream it, but you can see it in their eyes, you can feel it in their persona, that they're screaming for personalization. They want cheers of innovation. They want to be personalized in a very creative way. That's the generation. But it's true of everyone over time. It's just that we lived in a society for many years where people, if you would say, put up and shut up and did what they were told. That's no longer the case. But the good news is we can leverage this environment and lead in such a creative way if we empower the people to do what they're best at doing. And again, high talent's great, but understanding people and getting the best out of everyone is a greater force in and of itself. You know, one of the quotes I've loved for many years, but it's never been more true than it is today, even though it was written many years ago, is that what if we could inspire people to dream about themselves daily? You know, it's one thing to teach somebody and inspire them for a lifetime, and we need that. But at the same time, in today's world, how would we teach people in a way that they can inspire themselves and dream of who they are and how they fit within your organization? That's really the art of managing people today. And I would say that it's no longer a science like we thought. Let's study behavioral patterns and let's study emotions, let's do EQ, all pertinent at some point in time. But today, completely different. You need all this stuff at play, but you need to understand it in such a clear fashion. And that's why I so much like the why me, or me, the why in me that the organization shares. So let's take a look at artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is pretty simple. In fact, it's not that intelligent. I call it augmented intelligence because it really is meant to augment my intelligence, because it can't replace certain things I do as a human, and I'll prove that to you in a minute. But let's just read this for a second and put it in perspective. Artificial intelligence sees patterns and complex relationships in data that humans could not see without perhaps great many years of analysis. You'd study it for years and maybe still not get it. As such, AI can range over and analyze immense data and offer prompt solutions that humans, as a practical matter, cannot ascertain. In other words, the speed of computers today, the speed of high-powered supercomputing, parallel processing, allows computers to process things in just split seconds, compared to me trying to analyze it as one human being. That doesn't mean AI is smarter, it just has access to more information and can process it quicker than I can. And I'm not offended by that. All it is doing is studying patterns of things documented over time. in a faster manner than ever before. I'm not offended or afraid of that. In fact, I worked on some of those supercomputers that were eventually used to break world records in processing information. And so today we find ourselves in that era of time. It's only studying patterns of behavior and spitting out results that it is observed and understood. So I hear a lot of people say a couple different things, and one of them is AI or artificial intelligence is going to replace my job. Well, the truth is that's not going to happen. You know, over time, I've witnessed technology. I've studied it long enough to find just the opposite happens. You know, that in 2013, Amazon, as a prime example, would be hiring about 80,000 employees. Now they're up to approximately 1.68 million employees around the world. Now, that's pretty phenomenal, but at the same time, over time, they've been hiring robots who use artificial intelligence at an increased rate, but not nearly as much as humans. So this chart in itself says jobs aren't being replaced. They may be changed so that they can do a more productive job, but they're not to replace so that one day we've got all robots working, no, humans working. And on top of that, the companies who use artificial intelligence or robots or advanced technologies and people are always going to be more profitable, more productive, more competitive, in other words. And Amazon proves that over and over again. Many other companies have proved the same thing. But don't listen to people who are always petrified of losing their particular place in the world. Leverage everything that's at your disposal. Now, the other thing I hear often is that the bias of AI. Now, keep in mind, I'm going back. That definition of AI functionality is only studying patterns of behavior. So I don't think artificial intelligence can be biased. I think what artificial intelligence is doing, or I know this, is they're collecting all the data that we've documented, books that have been written, and it's collecting that information which only exposes the fact that maybe people are biased. So let's be careful not to change AI so it's not unbiased when it was really just a replication of who we are and what we've thought for so many years. Rather, let's study it and do a benchmark and say, this is where we were as a society this year, next year, and find out that we can change our civilization in so many different ways if we choose to be truthful, we choose to be honest, and we choose not to be biased towards people. And I think artificial intelligence is only going to mirror the shift in society. That's its capabilities. And for that, I'm thankful. So in fact, I'm the author of Chapter 8 in a book called The Neurosystemic Applications in Learning. And it's really a study of how people really learn. Not how we teach, but how people learn. And I documented the case of humanware. How do we take technology and add artificial intelligence or other technologies to aid the human and to be more productive? And so I called it humanware. And we have proven over time at Oral Roberts University that is such a phenomenal breakthrough when you can take technology but factor in human nature. You see, artificial intelligence, everybody knows this, that's in the know on artificial intelligence, can never possess hope, deep faith, no matter what religion, or it can't produce agape love or deep love. That's what humans are good at, or should be good at doing. Let AI do what it's going to do, and if we focus on what we're good at doing, we're going to see some of the greatest breakthroughs in human history. Let's face it, cancer has not been solved yet. Multiple sclerosis has not been solved yet. Lupus hasn't been solved. Fibromyalgia. People are still dying of opioid overdose. Yeah, I can go on and on. So why not leverage the knowledge in the world with our caring nature and witness the world change in such a marvelous way? At Oral Roberts University, in fact, we worked on an artificial intelligence project 6 years ago, which was called the MQ Mirror. And that was to take the knowledge of the world and put the National Self-Depression Test in artificial intelligence so people could self-identify with depression or anxiety without anybody pointing a finger at them. That's a breakthrough. It was a breakthrough 6 years ago, still is today. Why? Because nobody wants to be shamed. Think about it. When people fall down on the sidewalk, slip down the hill or down the steps, the first thing they do is to look around and see if anybody saw them because they don't want to be shamed. And then they'll worry about a broken bone or some bruise on their body. You see, that's true of everything. If we could help people see things without fingers being pointed at them or trying to confess something to somebody else, it's a breakthrough. And that's exactly what artificial intelligence can do, and we've done through the MQ Mirror. You can Google MQ Mirror, my name, Michael Mathews, or Roberts University, and you'll see many, many publications on this breakthrough. So when we take a look, who in their right mind would look at the statistics of mental health alone? I'm not talking about the 70,000 people who died of some drug overdose last year in America alone. I'm talking about just mental health. Surely we can use this intelligence that some people are running from and leverage it in fundamentally breakthrough manners. That's innovation. That's creativity. And yet, it's helping the next generation be a better society, all by the use of that technology. So artificial intelligence with immersive learning is a breakthrough thought. Now, let me prove it to you. In 2021, the Federal Drug Administration approved virtual reality as the remedy for the largest chronic issue in America, which is lower back pain. Lower back pain. And so they were prescribing opioid drugs for lower chronic back pain for many years. Little did they realize 115 people every day would eventually die of overdose of those opioid drugs. You see, opioid drugs are mind-altering. They're addictive after 3 to 5 days. People get addicted to them. But virtual reality is mind-altering, but it doesn't give you that addiction to something that will kill you. Isn't that pretty interesting? The Federal Drug Administration saw that the power of virtual reality would change your mindset. Now, you want to talk about changing the learning environment, you have it right there. And so somebody asked me, Mike, how's that possible? I said, well, it's simple. Mind-altering drugs will temporarily kill the pain, but so will putting your mind on something else. It alters your mind. But the truth is, great education will alter your destiny. It will alter your career. What a thought. Education does matter in ways people never thought possible. And it starts with things like advanced technologies like immersive learning. And so here I have another slide. I'm showing the document. You can search this document, Google it, but they proved that young people playing Fortnite, the game on a smartphone or computer, will accelerate a child's brain up to 1,000 times more than sitting in a classroom or sitting at the workplace. Wow, if that's not enough evidence, I don't know what will be. And now they've got enough evidence that those who play either gaming, Fortnite, whatever you want to call it, 1.3 hours a day, about that time frame, will have a higher IQ than those who don't. So there's a limit, of course, but you get the point. It's not all bad. We can leverage it and understand it to change the learning environments. That photo on here happens to be me with the inventor of LASIK surgery at Arizona University, or University of Arizona. He works there. He's from Iran originally. And he said, Mike, I know all your work in immersive learning, and I would like you to come out and meet with some legislators in Arizona. And I did exactly that about 2 years ago. And they've received quite a bit of money for immersive learning. Why? Because it changes things. You know, we can have surgery, we can have cancers, but what if we could help people understand all these illnesses or solutions from a different perspective? I'm so thankful that I've been invited to so many different countries and so many different cities, all to talk about immersive learning, a learning style that's completely different. I love learning. Teaching, I like to teach too, of course, but to be able to see how people learn and creatively design it and customize it for them is breakthrough. And that's a possibility today. This is one of my favorite slides I love showing. It's my granddaughter, Briella. My granddaughter, Briella, had a tragic birth defect called tibia hemimelia. And so she had major surgery on her leg. She is 9 years old in this photo where she's wearing virtual reality glasses. And she's connected in virtual reality, live stereo, to a 75-year-old orthopedic surgeon in Bradenton, Florida. In fact, Dr. Peter Armstrong, personal friend of mine, he is in the Hall of Fame of orthopedic surgeons. Imagine that. He is teaching or providing a learning environment for my 9-year-old granddaughter. That's phenomenal. That's a breakthrough. In fact, when my granddaughter gets done about half an hour later, she says, Grandpa, I don't know if I want to be a fashion designer. Maybe I want to be an orthopedic surgeon. Why? Because the immersive learning, being engaged in it, changed her viewpoint of what surgery was all about. That brings to mind the work of Dr. George Land, who studied with NASA. They found out that 98% of 5-year-olds have creative genius in them. That's who you want working for you. 98% of 5-year-olds have creative genius, but you can see the age as you go up. You get to my age, most people only have 2% of creative genius. I don't think that's true for those who go back to their childhood regularly. People say, Mike, you act like a child yet. Slow down, you got too much energy. I said, what are you talking about? I know where creative energy comes from and what creative energy can do in your body for not just your health, but for your output. And so I encourage people to take a look, hang out with younger people, use their creative energies. And back to Gen Z now. Well, Gen Z, younger generation, has a purpose differently than I did. What if we could leverage all that? What if we could take all this knowledge that we now possess about learning environments, teaching styles, and teach in such a wonderful way? Our workforce will change. Now, these are some of the words that we've won over the years, probably in 4 years, using some of these technologies, understanding the learning environment, changing some of it, transforming is a better word. I do not like the word disruption. I don't like disrupting people's lives, nor their work environment. So disruptive technology has been used by tech companies to shake up and maybe make people somewhat fearful if they're not buying the right stuff. But what if we could use it to transform a society? I like that thought, and I believe we can, and artificial intelligence will witness that over time. In fact, one of the latest awards was a recent one about Education 2.0. Who's taking education to the next level? Oral Roberts University was a recipient, and then one of our employees who's very talented as well, Vinay Manda, is just an incredible person. He was ranked one of the top 10 technologist professionals. Now again, I say that he's very talented, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have those 3 issues that we're talking about. I don't think he does, but what if he does? Do I know that? Do you know who's struggling with those 3 components that are the real realities that we must address in the workforce today? So Oral Roberts University has had breakthrough years for the last 14 years. We've exceeded 6,000 students recently. You can see we have 6 colleges, numerous different disciplines, 150 programs. But as addition, we're ranked highly. Now, I want to bring this up for a reason. You see, when we see that we're 4th in the nation for engagement, and we've been ranked very high for quite a few years in this area, I start telling people the story. Why? Well, our president wrote the book on Generation Z. He studied, he applied, he implements, and he has his managers or leaders implementing the concepts that how do we get this workforce to work in alignment with the goals that help you be competitive? We believe Oral Roberts University is one of the leading universities in the world. Why? Because of that leadership that he demonstrates by paying attention to all the key components of the workforce we find ourselves in. Now, I said with the Federal Drug Administration, they've proven the influence of education or immersive learning, and I took it to the next level. Now I'm showing a document here you need to look up, because over time, it has been proven now that education will transform a society. It will transform a nation or region, like the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce. Could be influential if we put education first. Now, over time, it's been proven that the money flows through education, not because educators are rich or anything like that by any stretch. What it proves, though, if you will take your eyes off just paying a college tuition bill and put it over time, a 200-year period of time, you'll find out a society becomes wealthy because of that investment in education. Wow, what a thought. And I can show you slide after slide. Now I'm showing you another one that shows that educational attainment, or the number of years of education you have in a nation, a city, a community, a family, is the more productive you are. So you're thinking workforce, that's the topic. And you think, wait, if we want to have more productivity because we got a great workforce, how do I measure that? Well, I'll make sure that we have the right education, but then I'll measure per employee or per capita, as most World Bank data does, and see how productive is our city, our region, our nation. And the truth is, America, Sweden, Norway are always up on top. Some of the countries who are real low in educational attainment are always at the bottom. Education is transformational. It will alter your life. It'll alter your destiny. That's just a fact. Here's another way to look at it: is how much do you have? A high school diploma, 2-year, 4-year, postgraduate, meaning a professional, maybe certificate. You can start seeing your earnings go up. That's just a reality. Education over time pays huge dividends. In fact, a person who has a bachelor's degree will earn up to 2.8 million more in their career than those who don't. Now, for the number of people who graduated in a society, they have that much more money to invest and to put into other things than those who don't. So you get the point. It pays huge dividends. But that's the importance and why Oral Roberts University is going to begin to offer this fall 2023, all our programs virtually, meaning you can now attend one of these programs virtually from anywhere in the world. You'll be engaged with the class. You'll be engaged with the students in the class. You'll be engaged with the professors who are world-renowned. and take your career to the next level. But I encourage companies listening to this, consider partnering with Oral Roberts University so your employees can get to the next level. Maybe they have a bachelor's already, they want a master's degree. Maybe they got a master's degree, they want a professional certificate. It benefits your company, your city, your community, your nation when your citizens, your people, your workforce are highly educated. So give it some thought. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the reality of quantum and frequent change that's happening. Now, quantum is best defined like this because we can think of quantum computing, quantum mathematics, but it really has to do with a lot of basic things. So for instance, if I see a sky and it's completely clear, but enough water molecules of likeness come in proximity of one another, it forms a cloud. It has to. It's a quantum principle. Now, that same thing applies to people. When enough like-minded people agree on education or agree on something in alignment, something has to manifest. It has to be produced. That's just a reality. I love that concept. I apply it all the time when it comes to people. Now, what does that mean for us, though? Because we require a mindset of innovation because things are changing. We would think at quantum rates, but they're really not. They're over probably usually a 10-year period of time, something shifts. Artificial intelligence, underneath that is machine learning, has been around for 60 years. And all of a sudden, ChatGPT comes out and everybody's panicking or elated that it's out, but it's been evolving over time. And so there are thousands of savants. And a savant, we usually think of a musician or a mathematician. But the truth is, a savant is somebody who specializes in extraordinary in any discipline. It could be a mechanic, it could be a welder, it could be an aviation mechanic, it could be a computer scientist, it could be anyone. But how will you know who they are if you don't leverage some of these things I'm talking about and let people express themselves and understand that through education and through testing and creating right learning environments, you'll identify savants in areas you never thought possible. That's the workforce you want. What if I could change talent management to savant management? I want to know who those geniuses are across the board. Talent's okay, but genius is better. Now, this diagram behind me is actually, if I clicked on it, you would see Anna Dreambrush paint this incredible picture, one of the greatest teachers in the world. She uses virtual reality. If you just Google Anna Dreambrush, you'll see thousands of her works. She's invited to every major museum around the world because she specializes in describing history or somebody's life through painting virtual reality. She's a savant in education. There's a lot more, by the way. We just haven't identified them because we haven't leveraged all the tools. Now, the National Intelligence Council documented maybe 3 years ago already that we live in this hyper-connected world, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, the web growing as it is, transistors being multiplied around the world, you name it. But it's all pretty much connected now, the hyper-connected world. So the car we drive, maybe we bought it 3 years ago, is hyper-connected to the internet. It's hyper-connected through artificial intelligence in the car to beep at the right time, shut the engine off if you're going to get in an accident. We sort of appreciate that. But you probably never stepped back and realized how integrated it really is. What if you could take that integration and integrate human behavior by understanding and identifying employees and begin to have the best and most creative workforce in the world? I believe you can do that. Now, in that, though, is understanding that there's peripheral technologies, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, but right at the core that touches the human heart is immersive learning, virtual reality, augmented reality. How a person learns first is on their secondary brain. And you can look it up. The secondary brain is actually on your neurons in your intestines. And they actually learn quicker than up here. And that's called the heart language, if you would. Some would call it love language, but it's a fact. It's all scientifically proven. Look it up, second brain. And if we can understand that when you use those technologies and speak to the human heart first, you're going to witness the savants come out quickly and automatically. Now, let me give you a point of all this. This is a picture of me from about, 7 years ago, when some of the stuff was new, I was already doing some of it. But then I get invited to go to China to help the Chinese government, right? Don't get mad at me. I mean, I love all people. If the Egyptians would have invited me, I would have gone. If, Ukrainians would have, I would have gone. Why? Because I believe everyone deserves an education. That's the goal of Oral Roberts University. 144 nations, soon 195. And we have wonderful students from China. So I get the invitation to go, and they're going to put trillions of dollars into virtual reality, putting goggles around people's head, immersing them in learning. And I go there and I say, you know what? Yes, I can help. But I will warn you, if you do not know this maybe, but the heart learns first. In other words, when you put virtual reality glasses on, your sensory stuff kicks in and you begin to change different than you think up here, right? Because here first, here second. So I said, what will happen is this will be like watching grass grow. You never see it really grow, but you wake up once a week and see that your grass needs to be mowed. Somehow it naturally grows, but you never witness it grow. That's what happens in this kind of learning. Pay attention for the workforce. That would happen. Your whole workforce could change if you choose to. Now, what I said to them, you'll wake up one day and your citizen tree, your people will have changed. Within 1 year of me making that statement over there, Hong Kong sort of blows up. Why? Because people didn't want to be part of something different. They had changed. I'm not the one who makes up these rules. I'm just trying to help people identify the reality that your workforce could change if you invest in the right technologies to train your workforce and provide the right learning environments. And so as I continue on, if you're going to lead successfully today, we need to understand that AI is harmless. It's the humans that we need to be more mindful of, okay? So I worked at the supercomputer company for 12 years. In 1987 is about the time frame I started, maybe 2 years before that. And I started wondering, will a human ever be outpaced? And the answer over time was no. So jump ahead 35 years, and that same supercomputer company, now merged with Hewlett-Packard, HP, can produce 11 quintillion calculations per second. 1 quintillion equals 1 billion billions. So that means, wow, in 1 second, that supercomputer that's running ChatGPT is cranking out that much horsepower. No wonder the answer's coming back so quickly. Those supercomputers are all integrated. What if we could integrate the workforce? Wow, same concept. When I worked in 1987 at Cray Research, nothing was integrated, few things. Now everything's integrated. Integration matters. Integrate in the workforce. And what if we could calculate differently than we thought? What if the savant in most of your employees came out? You might be scared. Well, you'll be blessed, actually. And if you ever look on some of my videos, you'll see me doing multiple things with holographic avatars and so forth, proving the fact that I can move around the world instantly. Why? Because we are better than supercomputers. You can search that, and if you need help, give me an email and I'll send it to you. So, a view of my world, thanks to all these changes, is my grandfather worked very hard, never missed a day of work in 42 years. He bragged about that in ways, and he should have, I guess. But I watched it really put him in an early grave. My father, same sort of thing. And I look at my life, is that all it is working a 40-hour work week only to end up where we're at? And yet, I'm fearing, and my workforce is fearing, that they're going to lose their 40-hour work week. I said, we can change that. I believe when you love work, 60, 70, 80 hours is nothing, but it doesn't feel like work, it's enjoyable. And that's where I hope that all this stuff gets to, where we can enjoy our life and be more natural about what we do instead of live in fear of the very things that we shouldn't be fearing over. Let's focus on the goodness of humanity and the goodness of leveraging these technologies within the workforce. So how do you stay competitive? Well, I believe it's the well-being of employees equal productivity. You want your productivity to go up? Focus on the well-being of the employees and then leverage some of the technologies. And that's really the summary of all this, is the well-being of employees and leverage innovation technologies, and you'll be surprised at the productivity of your workforce. And so I wanted to put this up. There's a scannable for the company that gave me a lot of the information pertaining to the top 3 issues in the workforce. My why. Scan them in, give them a call. Very helpful. And then lastly, my contact information if you want to get a hold of me. I hope this has been beneficial to not just the Tulsa Regional Chamber of Commerce, but workforces around the world who find it very difficult to compete today, striving too hard on one hand and yet fearing technology on the other. What if we could take a deep breath, step back, and apply the greatness of humanity and the greatness of technology